Hello, nice to have you back for more Explore Tulsa, and our next guest is one of Stevie's teachers. We'll have to ask Brad how you're doing in class.
Well, I haven't gotten in any trouble yet, if that's what you're talking about.
The key word there is yet.
It's drone school, Trish, which means it's a lot of fun. Plus, Brad really knows his stuff when it comes to flying just about anything.
As a child growing up, my dad flew RC airplanes. And this is back in the day where they weren't ready to fly. This is when you got a box with a bunch of sheets of balsa wood. You laid your plans out, you traced them, cut them out, and you spent usually what amounted to a whole winter building the ship or airplane at that time. And they were so easy to damage, and the patience needed was, it was something else. I'd watch my dad work for months and months and months. Then he'd coat them with monocoat and the whole thing. And then I'd watch him fly them. He'd let me take the controls and fly them. And at this time, this would have been the early 80s, mid 80s. And I've always been fascinated by flight. And I was hooked from that point on. I began flying RC helicopters in 1993. And at that same time, I was actually working at Video Revolution. And I was passionate about photography and videography, and naturally when you see a helicopter in the air, the first thing you want to do is get a camera on it. So I started experimenting with building my own camera mounts, and they were horrible, but it was a start. From 1993 on, learning to fly an RC helicopter, essentially you went out, you spent months building and balancing the ship, and then you went out and just prayed that you didn't wad it up, because any little hiccup meant weeks of rebuilding the ship and rebalancing. You would start by hovering one literally inches off the ground. That's how you learned. Unless you had someone that actually knew how to fly that would buddy box you, but it was so rare to find an RC helicopter pilot, you just had to go out on your own and vibrate around on the ground, literally. After we got more advanced, we started adding Kenyon KS2 gyroscopic stabilizers, and it would stabilize a shot in 2 axes. The problem was you added about 3.5 pounds to your ship. And when you're talking about RC helicopters, payload is everything. We were already starting with hobby-based helicopters that were not designed to haul additional load. So you're doing a lot of modifications to get them to haul the additional payload in the first place, and you tack on 3.5 pounds. And that's quite a bit, because you're talking about an all-up weight on the ship flying with the gas one about 22 pounds. And in that time frame, about 2006, 2007-ish, this Chinese company, DJI, comes out with an autopilot for RC helicopters. Big unit, 2-3 pounds, but it was GPS based. It would hold you in all axis, hold altitude. And we got one of these things for a big gas-powered RC helicopter. And I parked this thing in the sky and let go of the controls, and I knew everything had changed at that moment. The stress and how hard it was to fly, it was easy for me to fly at that point, but to train someone to fly was just almost impossible. That device would let you take off and land the helicopter by itself. It would hold position in the sky, it would hold altitude in the wind, and I knew everything from there was going to change dramatically. Well, then their next product was a stabilizer for multi-rotors, or drones as people refer to them now. Once that hit the market, I got one of those, built a quadcopter, put it on there, and instantly everything has really changed now, because you have less mechanical components. It's a simple ship. This thing is flying itself. It's flying via waypoints. At that point, I knew that anyone could learn to fly one in a matter of a weekend, essentially. I enjoy teaching. I always have. I don't want to take my knowledge to the grave. I like passing it on. I don't want to hoard it, as some people do. If I take someone flying with me in my full-size plane, I probably drive them nuts, because I want to teach them everything about it. I want them to be passionate about it as well. I've always had that in me. And teaching the Part 107 classes, that's just another outlet for me. It's something different than what I'm normally doing, and it's just enjoyable to get out and meet people, and then hopefully watch them flourish in the field as well. Every day is exciting in this business. I find it, I have a love for flight as a full-size pilot and a drone pilot. I love anything that flies, no matter what it is. To be able to make a living flying, to me, it doesn't get any better than that. Every day is an adventure.